Germany has requested the International Court of Justice to reject Nicaragua's case. The Central American nation wants the World Court to order Germany to stop supplying military aid to Israel. Israel is facing pressure as the situation worsens in the Gaza Strip since the conflict broke out in October last year. Germany says Nicaragua's case is based on speculation. Khayelihle Khumalo joins me now in studio to unpack a little bit more on this case. Kay, before we talk about Germany's response, perhaps just bring us back to what are some of Nicaragua's key points in as far as Germany is concerned in the Middle East, particularly, of course, in Gaza.
Well, that's right, Tunati. So when you look at the salient points from the argument presented by Nicaragua, for example, they do say that with Germany continuously supplying arms to Israel, I mean, that's complicity to what has been seen as a genocide unfolding in Gaza, but also in the main, also saying that by virtue of Germany saying that they will temporarily defund UNRWA, which is the Palestinian Refugee Agency supported by the United Nations, it's crippling such a very important entity in terms of the role, in terms of the operations in Gaza. So far, that has been the argument presented by Nicaragua. But also they say, given their history in South America, you know, with a military dictatorship, with also when it comes to the issues pertaining to human rights, it's absolutely important that they do come to the World Court. But also another issue that they do raise is that there is a flagrant violation of the Genocide Convention in terms of the obligations by Germany as one of the signatories.
Of course, some of the responses that we've heard from Germany is that Nicaragua's case is based on speculation. A lot of pressure, is mounting, on those countries that are associated to Israel, as we look at the escalation of the situation in the Middle East. What does Germany have to say for themselves?
So certainly, I mean, for Germany, they say that there's a historic mission for them in terms of the priority when it comes to Israel's history and also in terms of the security in the main, especially because, I mean, when you look at the Holocaust, it was right in the heart of Germany, which is a very turbulent history. So they really feel that it's an uppermost priority at all times to make sure that Israel is well protected, especially in the region where they're surrounded by so many hostile countries, with the likes of Syria and many others. But also they do say that Hamas really should just be decimated at all cost. But also another very key issue that Germany raised was that this particular argument is based on flimsy evidence. There is a misrepresentation of the security of the situation, especially because when you look at the context of how Germany has been supplying these weapons, adhering to very stringent measures when it comes to the supply of these weapons. But of course, Nicaragua is saying lots of people are dying in Gaza. The situation is absolutely precarious. And at this particular point in time, according to the health ministry in Gaza, the death toll is approaching 34,000. And obviously, those are very conservative estimates because you still have so many people buried in the rubble.
There's been a lot of developments since South Africa took Israel to the ICJ. I mean, we've seen a number of countries like we are seeing today with Nicaragua, going to the ICJ to have some of these countries held accountable. Just place this particular application, relative to South Africa's case.
I think obviously Nicaragua is really inspired by South Africa's case, especially when you look at the very clear, the stipulations that came out from the orders that were made by ICJ towards Israel for the prevention of the genocide. But also I think it speaks to the making sure that the international law is being upheld, where you see some countries really challenging very powerful economies like Germany from Nicaragua. I mean, this is Europe's largest economy, and also it comes with a very severe cost where in terms of trade, the implications could be far-reaching. But also apart from that, I mean, I think it also speaks to this wave that is growing, where we're seeing all these protests from time to time from major capital cities where people are really challenging the world that humanity should really just prevail in Gaza, because you have the children dying, you have the deprivation of food, and many other really just serious issues. And also it speaks to the international instrument as well, for the likes of United Nations to be quite effective by virtue of the ICJ being a very important judicial instrument of the United Nations. It's quite important for them to rise to the occasion, especially as the atrocities continue. The talks are still ongoing in Cairo, but there hasn't been any positive outcome.
And of course, South Africa is still maintaining its support for the Palestinian people. I mean, just recently, President Cyril Ramaphosa, in the observation of the Rwandan genocide, again saying that no genocide will, be allowed to happen in the presence, of the world, essentially. Just talk to us a little bit about the critical standpoint of South Africa at this point.
Well, absolutely, especially because when you go back to 1994, there were so many warnings all over the world that what was happening in Rwanda was absolutely unimaginable, unforgivable. But the world turned a blind eye to a very atrocious situation. And I think you draw these parallels that, history oftentimes tends to repeat itself.
Yeah.
So countries like South Africa are very vocal about the situation, especially because in light of the provisional measures that were issued by the ICJ, there hasn't been any significant difference on the ground for the Palestinians. I mean, whether you're looking at Gaza, whether you're looking at West Bank, and many other areas as well. So there hasn't been any particular change. But also, what is always important is that this level of activism is maintained so that the world really is just kept on its feet, so that we really do see the enormous difference on the ground. Also, we saw South Africa going back to the ICJ, especially when you look at Rafah. Quite a number of Palestinians have crammed into that particular city. Once again, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying they will continue the ground offensive in that particular area. And obviously so many countries, even some of the Western countries, have raised concerns in terms of the very dire situation on the ground.
And of course, that humanitarian crisis is still continuing there. Well, Khaya, thank you so much for unpacking all of this for us and just making sense of what is happening. Khayelihle Khumalo there for us. Thank you so much, of course. Talking there about Germany requesting the International Court of Justice to reject Nicaragua's case.